you know the moment, your phone lights up. It is not even a terrible message, not a betrayal, not a crisis, just a tone, just a short reply, just somebody answering with 3 words when you needed a little warmth. And before you can name it, something in your chest tightens. Your jaw gets ready. Your mind starts building the case. You can't, whatever you're the version of yourself, the efficient version, the version that wins the argument and loses the afternoon. Maybe you do not say anything. Maybe you go quiet and call it maturity. Maybe you send the polite text with the period at the end, the one that is technically fine and emotionally loaded. Maybe you over-explain for 11 messages and then hate how small you feel. Or maybe you keep it together all day and then snap at the person who loves you most because they asked where the scissors are. Here is the wound underneath all of it. Not anger, not really. It is the ache of feeling unseen while you are trying so hard to be good. It is the old fear that if you let one more thing slide, you will disappear. That if you do not defend yourself, no one will. That if you stay soft, people will mistake your softness for permission. That somewhere along the way, being kind became confused with being available, and being calm became confused with being numb. I want to tell you something tender and true before we go any further. The goal of your life is not to become a person who never gets angry. The goal is to become a person who is no longer owned by the anger of other people. A person who can feel the heat rise and still choose the temperature of the room. A person who can be bothered by reality without being exiled from themselves. A person who does not confuse peace with passivity, or boundaries with punishment, or self-respect with coldness, because never getting angry is not enlightenment. Sometimes it is fear, wearing good clothes. What we are after is steadier than that, braver than that. I have sat with so many people who thought their work was to become unbothered. They would say, I just want to let it roll off. I just want to not care. I just want to not care. I just want to be above it. And I understand the hunger when you've been hurt by tone, by dismissal, by the little cuts that do not leave marks anyone else can see. Of course you want skin like rain. Of course you want to become untouchable. But armor is heavy. And what keeps out the sting also keeps out the light. So this is not a script for hardening. This is a way back to yourself. There are 8 shifts. They are simple to say and sacred to practice. The first few will feel like relief. The middle ones will feel like exposure because they ask you to stop auditioning for love. The last one is the one most people mistake for a flaw, and it may be the truest thing about you. Stay with me because by the end, I want you to hear this differently. You were never too angry. You were too alone inside your anger. And loneliness, not heat, is what makes fire dangerous. The first shift is this. Stop treating anger like a character flaw and start treating it like information. Brené Brown has spent years naming the difference between shame and guilt. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. Anger gets tangled in both. Many of us were not taught you are angry because something matters. We were taught good girls do not raise their voices. Nice people do not make waves. Spiritual people rise above. Loving partners let it go. So the feeling arrives, and instead of asking what it knows, we indict ourselves for having it. Picture a kitchen at 6:40 in the evening. You are tired in that special way where your bones feel loud. You have answered emails, remembered birthdays, swallowed a comment in a meeting, packed the lunches, found the missing shoe. Someone walks in, looks at the counter and says, we are out of rice again. That is it. 4 words. And something ancient stands up in you, not because of rice, because your nervous system has been keeping a private ledger. And that sentence landed on a page already crowded with unnoticed effort. You hear, you failed. You hear, I do not see what you carry. You hear, you are only as good as the last thing you provided. The old move is to attack the feeling. I should not be this sensitive. Other people have real problems. Why am I like this? Shame puts a hood over the signal and then wonders why you cannot see. Anger is often a boundary with a hoarse voice. It shows up where a need has been stepped on, where a value has been crossed, where your dignity has gone too long without water. Susan David calls the alternative emotional agility, not obeying every feeling, not banishing every feeling, turning toward the data without letting the data drive the car. Here is the cost. Nobody mentions when they tell you to calm down. When you shame your anger, you do not become calmer. You become more confusing to yourself. The body keeps the score, as Bessel van der Kolk taught so many of us, and an unheeded signal does not vanish. It moves into the shoulders, the stomach, the sleepless 3 a.m. rehearsal of conversations that already happened. So begin smaller than serenity. When the heat rises, do not ask, how do I get rid of this? Ask, what is this protecting? Not with drama, with reverence. Put a hand where the feeling lives. Chest, throat, jaw, fists. Breathe once like you mean it. Say inside, something in me believes I am being erased. Something in me is guarding a tender place. I do not have to obey this alarm to honor it. You are not becoming passive. You are becoming fluent. The second shift is harder because it looks like nothing from the outside. Create the pause before you create the story. Viktor Frankl survived what should have destroyed every tender thing in him, and from that darkness he described a space between stimulus and response. People argue about the exact wording of the famous line, but the lived truth remains. Between what happens to you and what you do next, there is a room. Most of us were never shown the door. We think the comment and the comeback are one event, the eye roll and the wound, the read receipt and the rejection, the tone and the verdict. But they are not one event. There is a seam. It may only be 3 seconds wide at first. 3 seconds is a country when you have lived at war. Neuroscience gives this seam a shape. When threat hits, the amygdala can flood the system before the wiser parts of the brain have finished their coffee. Daniel Goleman popularized the phrase amygdala hijack, and even if you have never read a brain study, you know the feeling. Your face gets hot, your thoughts become absolutes, always, never, everyone, no one. The past and present braid together until your mother, your ex, your boss, and the woman who cut the line at the pharmacy are all standing in the same body. In that state, you are not choosing, you are reliving. Here is a scene. You are in a meeting or a family group text or a kitchen, and someone says something that brushes an old bruise. You feel the rise. The old Jew thinks relief lives in the perfect sentence. The sentence that proves you are not small, not dramatic, not wrong. But the sentence is usually a match looking for curtains. The pause is not weakness. The pause is you walking back into the room where your choices live. Try this quietly. Feel both feet. Name 5 ordinary things you can see. The blue mug, the chipped paint, the plant leaning toward the window like it believes in light. Let your eyes come back online. Long exhale, longer than the inhale, not to perform calm, to tell your body, we are not being chased by a tiger. We are being challenged by a tone. Then ask one question before the story hardens. What else could be true? Not what is definitely true. Not what is definitely true. Not let them off the hook. Just what else? Maybe they are careless. Maybe they are scared. Maybe they are clumsy with need. Maybe they are exacting because their own inner critic has teeth. Maybe they are wrong and still not the final authority on your worth. Lissa Feldman Barrett's work on constructed emotion and the research on affect labeling from Matthew Lieberman both point towards something almost embarrassingly simple. Putting words to inner experience can lower its voltage. Not because words are magic, because naming turns a storm into weather. So the practice is not silence. The practice is a holy delay. 3 seconds, 1 breath, 1 honest name. I am activated. I am making meaning. I am allowed to wait until my wisdom arrives. The third shift is where many tender people get free or get stuck. Learn the difference between being kind and being fused. Some of us do not get angry at others first. We get angry at ourselves for not preventing other people's feelings. We become emotional meteorologists for rooms we did not create. We walk in and scan. Is she disappointed? Is he bored? Did that pause mean I talked too much? Should I add a joke, soften the opinion, make myself easier to carry? It looks like empathy. Sometimes it is hypervigilance with good manners. Brené Brown talks about belonging versus fitting in. Fitting in is assessing the room and acclimating. Belonging is being somewhere without abandoning yourself. Many of us learned early that love was conditional on low maintenance. Be grateful, be easy, be helpful, be impressive, be quiet about the cost. So when another person is irritated, we do not experience their emotion as theirs. We experience it as an assignment. That is fusion. Their weather becomes your climate. Their bad day becomes your failure. Their silence becomes a courtroom, or you are both the accused and the only witness. John Gottman's research gives language to tiny moments that decide whether love feels safe. He calls them sliding door moments and bids for connection. A bid is small. Look at this. Are you okay? Did you see that dog in the little sweater? Will you sit with me? When someone turns toward a bid, trust gets a brick. When they turn away again and again, the house of us starts to draft. But here's the part that saves your sanity. You are responsible for turning toward bids. You are not responsible for controlling every mood that crosses another person's face. Read that again. You can be deeply loving and still let someone have their own nervous system. A boundary is not a wall. It is a door with a handle on your side. It sounds like this. I care about you and I am not available for being spoken to like that. I want to hear you and I need us both to slow down. I can see you are upset. I am going to step into the other room for 10 minutes, so I do not become cruel to prove I matter. Notice what is absent. No diagnosis. No character assassination. No courtroom exhibit A through Q. No. You always, you never. You are just like. A boundary names what you will do, not who they are. The cost of fusion is subtle and devastating. You start disappearing in advance. You pre-forgive what has not been asked. You laugh at what stings. You say no worries while worry builds a second spine. Then one day the anger bursts out sideways, disproportionate to the rice, the scissors, the period at the end of the text, and everyone acts shocked because you train them to believe nothing touches you. Reframe this now. Your sensitivity to rooms is not the problem. It may be a gift from a nervous system that had to read weather to stay safe. The work is not to become dull. The work is to come home from other people's storms. Say inside their feeling is real and it is not my emergency unless I choose to make it one. The fourth shift asks you to stop worshiping the unbothered performance. Numbing is not healing. There is a look that gets praised. Smooth face, dry voice, no flicker. I am fine. It did not bother me. I do not care. We have built altars to people who seem impossible to reach, as if being unreachable were the same as being free. But dead is not peaceful. Frozen is not healed. If your calm costs you your aliveness, it is not calm. It is exile. I used to believe strength meant no one could tell when they got to me. I could keep my voice level while my insides made bargains with God. Then I learned the hard way that the body does not applaud suppression. It invoices it. Headaches, insomnia, the strange grief that arrives on a random Tuesday because you did not let yourself feel the small grief on the necessary Monday. James Gross's research on emotion regulation matters here. One of the healthiest moves is reappraisal, changing the meaning while the feeling is still flexible. One of the costliest is suppression, clamping the expression while the inner pressure keeps cooking. Suppression can look composed and still leak contempt, distance, fatigue. The people around us feel unsaid even when they cannot name it. So if not numbness, what? Honesty with manners. Feeling with a spine. You can say, that hurt more than I expected. You can't say, I need a minute because I want to answer from the best in me, not the fastest in me. You can say, I notice I am making this mean. I do not matter. And I want to check that story before I hand you a role in my old pain. This is not oversharing with everyone. Discernment is part of dignity. Some people have not earned the blueprint to your inner house, but someone should have a key. Shame research keeps returning to this. Shame needs secrecy, silence, and judgment to grow. Empathy is one of its oldest enemies, not fixing, not ranking pain. A human voice saying, "Me too," or "I am here," or "Tell me what it was like." Fight whatever your mark is. Money stock Brave leader to 10% closer to the bone, not the whole ocean. One honest cup. Today I felt invisible. I pretended it was fine, and it was not fine. I do not need advice yet. I need you to know the real weather. The fifth shift is for the overthinkers, the courtroom builders, the ones who can construct a closing argument in the shower against a person who is currently asleep. Stop cross-examining your worth. When someone is short with us, the mind loves to gather evidence. See, they interrupted. See, they liked her post. See, the tone changed after I said no. See, I am easier to love when I am useful. Then the verdict, I am too much. Or not enough. Or both, depending on the hour. Here's the reversal that can save years. Most of what people do is not a mirror of your value. It is a weather report from their inner climate that does not excuse cruelty. It does not ask you to stain your harm. It simply refuses to let every raised eyebrow become a referendum on your right to exist. Kristin Neff's work on self-compassion gives 3 ingredients that sound soft and act like steel. Mindfulness. This is hard right now. Common humanity, struggling does not make me defective. It makes me human. Self-kindness. I can speak to myself the way I would speak to someone I love who is hurting. Most high-functioning, exhausted people are fluent in compassion for others and illiterate in compassion for themselves. If a friend called you crying because someone dismissed her, you would not say, "Well, have you considered being less annoying?" You would make tea. You would say, "Of course that stung." You are allowed to matter. So when the inner prosecutor starts pacing, do not debate your worth. Worth is not on trial. Try a sentence that feels almost too simple to work. I am having a hard moment, and I am still on my side. Not because I am perfect, not because everyone else is wrong, because no growth happens from the defendant's chair. There is a scene I keep coming back to. A woman gets left on read after sending something vulnerable. Not a confession, just truth. She watches the little dots appear, disappear, never return. Her stomach drops. Within 90 seconds, her mind has built a museum of every time she was too intense, too earnest, too needing. By lunch, she has decided to become a colder person. But what if the pause on the other end is not proof that she is unlovable? What if it is proof that vulnerability is risky and other people are clumsy? What if her task is not to retract her tenderness, but to choose better witnesses? The cost of self-cross-examination is that you abandon yourself before anyone else can. You eat first, so rejection cannot surprise you. You dim first, so no one has to squint. You say, "It is fine," with a smile that costs a week. The reframe is this: the ache you feel when someone mishandles your heart is not evidence you should have less heart. It is evidence your heart is still alive. Protect it. Do not amputate it. The 6th shift is deceptively practical. Lower the price of admission to your inner life. Some people should get your politeness, not your pain. Your professionalism, not your raw becoming. Your warmth, not your unsupervised access. Access is earned. Attention is not connection. Charm is not character. Consistency over time is the only passport that matters. We get bothered most by people whose opinions should not have keys to the house. The coworker who mistakes proximity for intimacy. The relative who calls criticism honesty. The friend who loves your light until it asks them to change the bulb. The stranger online who has never made a bed with your grief but feels qualified to grade your soul. Brené Brown talks about the arena. If you are brave with your life, you will get feedback from the cheap seats. The question is not, how do I make everyone understand me? The question is, who is in the arena with me, dust on their face, courage in their hands, willing to be seen while they see me? Make a private list, not for posting, for truth. Who repairs after rupture? Who can hear no without punishing you? who celebrates your joy without making it about them, who tells you hard things with kindness and easy things with delight, who remembers what you said when it was inconvenient to remember. Those people get more of you, not because others are worthless, because you are not public property. This shift will make you feel guilty before it makes you feel free, especially if you are praised for being the strong one, the available one, the one who never needs anything. You may think love means equal access. It does not. Love means truthful access. A gentle lifeline before you give someone the power to ruin your afternoon. Ask if they have earned the power to bless your becoming. If the answer is no, you can still be decent. You can still be warm. You can even be generous. But do not hand a plastic cup to someone and then resent them for not guarding your ocean. The seventh shift turns toward the body, because insight alone cannot hold a triggered nervous system. Make friends with the signals before they become sirens. You are not a brain being dragged around by an inconvenient body. You're a body that learned to survive, and your reactions make sense in the language of sensation before they make sense in sentences. Notice your early alphabet: heat in the ears, metal taste, shoulders near the jaw, the sudden need to be efficient, the urge to send one more clarifying text, the fantasy of deleting the thread and moving to Portugal, the way your voice gets bright and false when you say no, totally, whatever works. These are not moral failures. These are porch lights. Bessel van der Kolk taught a generation that trauma and chronic stress live not only in memory, but in physiology. You do not need a dramatic past for this to matter. 1,000 small moments of feeling unheard can train a body to brace before the door opens. So build rituals of return, not grand, repeatable. Before hard conversations, eat something. Hungry people confuse blood sugar with destiny. Put your phone face down for the first 3 minutes after conflict triggers you. Walk around the block without narrating the injustice to an invisible jury. Sleep is not a reward for good behavior. It is the floor under self-control. Joy is not frivolous. It is proof to your system that life is not only threat. And practice co-regulation on purpose. Sit near someone whose nervous system is not auditioning for danger. A dog leaning warm against your leg. A friend who does not rush your sentences. A therapist, a group, a faith community, a tree older than your fear. Julianne Holt-Lindstad's research on social connection is blunt. Loneliness is not just sad, it is dangerous to health. Isolation makes every irritant louder because there is no soft place to land. You are not needy for needing people, you are wired. The lifeline here is humble. When bothered, ask, have I eaten, slept, moved, been hugged? Ask, have I eaten, slept, moved, been hugged, told the truth? Not to excuse others, to locate yourself. Sometimes the spiritual answer is a sandwich and a nap. The eighth shift is the one people mistake for a flaw. Let yourself be affected without becoming ineffective. This is the final reversal. The point was never to become less responsive. The point was to become more rooted. You are not here to win a contest called Who Can Care the Least. You are here to love without collapsing, to tell truth without burning the house, to feel the arrow and still choose where it lands. Being deeply affected is not the opposite of power. Unprocessed, being deeply affected is. There is a kind of person who can enter a room and not immediately merge with every mood in it. They notice sorrow without drowning in it. They notice anger without making it their name. They can say, I see you and I am still here. That is not coldness. That is presence with a floor. Viktor Frankl's space. Susan David's agility. Kristen Neff's fierce tenderness. Brené Brown's courage to be seen. James Gross's reappraisal. The body's score. The arena. All of it gathers into one quiet art. Respond from worth, not from wound. Wound says, prove I matter. Worth says, I do not have to bleed to be believed. Wound says, win the text thread. Worth says, some victories require your absence. Wound says, make them feel what I felt. Worth says, I would rather be whole than be even. This does not mean you never confront. Sometimes love wears a firm voice. Sometimes the holiest sentence is no. Sometimes peace is on the other side of a conversation you have been postponing because you keep calling avoidance grace. But there is a difference between truth told to free and truth used to scald. Before you speak, ask 3 questions. Is it true, or is it just charged? Is it mine to say, or am I stealing someone else's lesson? Is this the moment, or am I trying to relieve my own tension by handing it to another body? If you still need to speak, speak clean. When you interrupted me, I felt small. I want to stay in this conversation, and I need to finish my sentences. I am not angry about the plan changing. I am hurt that I found out last. Next time, I need to be told directly. I love you, and I will not keep pretending that joke does not land on a bruise. No sermon, no archive, no final judgment. Just a door opened with steady hands. And when the other person cannot meet you there, grieve. Do not turn grief into propaganda against your own tenderness. Some people cannot sit at the table your healing requires. That is sad. It is not always a war. Now come back to the kitchen, the counter, the rice, the tight chest. Same words may be, different inner country. You feel the rise. You do not worship it or shame it. You let it ring once like a bell, and you listen for what it guards. You find the seam between what happened and what you make it mean. Your feet remember the floor. You do not hand your worth to the nearest mood. You do not perform invincibility while your body pays in secret. You tell the truth to the right person, in the right dose, at the right time. And if the answer is dismissal, you do not set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You breathe. You choose. Here is what I want you to hear with the softest part of your listening. You are not too much because people have been too careless with what you carry. You are not too sensitive because your body notices shifts before the room admits them. You are not broken because anger still visits. Anger visits houses where something precious lies. You are proof that a nervous system can learn new endings. Proof that tenderness can grow bones. Proof that a person can be kind without being consumable, open without being unprotected, calm without being gone. You are the woman who used to rehearse every conversation and now sometimes lets silence finish the sentence. You are the man who thought strength meant never flinching and is learning that real strength is flinching without leaving. You are the one who carried more than anyone saw and still found ways to make dinner, make peace, make light. So do not pray to become unbothered. Pray to become unabandoned. Unabandoned by yourself when the heat rises. Unabandoned when someone chooses misunderstanding. Unabandoned in the first 10 seconds after the sting, when the old story tries to move back in with its boxes. Let others have their weather. You keep your climate. Let them be short. You stay long in your own company. Let them underestimate you. You no longer join them. And if today you lose the pause, if the sharp sentence escapes, if you over-explain or go quiet in the old expensive way, begin again without a trial. Repair is more impressive than perfection. Say, I did not like how I showed up. Let me try that cleaner. Let yourself be a person in practice, not a monument to never needing one. The room does not have to change for you to return to yourself. The message can stay unanswered. The relative can keep their opinion. The memory can ache at 3 a.m. and still not be in charge by morning. You are allowed to matter before anyone agrees. You are allowed to rest without earning it through usefulness. You are allowed to be loved in the middle, not only after you would become easier. Be gentle with yourself today. You have carried more than most people ever see. If one line found a bruise and stayed there, tell me in the comments which truth hit closest to home. Not for performance, for witness. So someone else reading at midnight knows they are not the only one learning to come back. And may you move through the next hard moment like someone who belongs to herself. Soft heart, clear door, steady floor. You are not too much. You are exactly enough to begin again.